All right, EGU News. I'm Santhi Pinkerton, and I'm here today with Miss Katie Thomas. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
She is our district mental health therapist, and we're going to be talking about stress and specifically what students might be feeling or experiencing with stress. So, Katie, we're just going to dive right into it, and let's first start with what is stress?
So stress is something we talk about a lot in our culture, and I think we're all familiar with that feeling that's just tense and not happy, not comfortable. Something we don't talk about very often is the benefits of stress. So stress can sometimes be a good thing. That's the type of stress that motivates us, that allows us to remember to get on top of our deadlines, to prepare for, I don't know, a recording, and to make sure that that we're doing what we need to do as citizens and students and family members. And it's all, that type of stress is something we feel like we can handle. Right? So it's a tense feeling, but we feel comfortable managing it. And then of course we have bad stress, distress, if you will. And that type of stress is the type of stress we feel like we can't handle. And it could be short term, something acute. For example, when a teacher first assigns a really big project, we feel stressed and like we can't handle it. Or it could be long term, which is what we're all starting to experience with staying at home, right? We've been at home for 4 or 5 weeks, we're not used to it, and we don't know when we get to leave again. So that type of stress lasts a really long time and can have more effects on our physical well-being and our emotional state as well.
Okay, so there's two kinds of stresses. There's a more positive stress, and then there's a negative stress. So how can they're both stress? How can I tell when it's becoming negative?
So that's when we want to be in tune with our physical being. So when it's becoming negative, it affects our body. Our stomach might get butterflies or knots, and our hands might start to tremble a little bit or sweat. Our heart rate increases, or we might even start changing some of our habits. So we might start eating more or start eating less. I have some bad habits of biting my fingernails. That could be something I notice that helps me notice I'm stressed out. Or the way we treat the people around us, right? We've all had the experience where we snap at somebody and we're like, wait, I'm not mad at that person. And so we just need to be aware of the changes that are happening for us to indicate whether or not it's a good stress or a bad stress.
Okay, very good. So let's talk about our students then, because I would think students might be expressing some or experiencing some different stress compared to adults right now, or other people out there. So what are some common stressors that you've been seeing for students?
So any kind of change or transition can be a stressor. In fact, almost always is. And sometimes, again, it's a good stressor because we're excited about the change. And then, like right now, we're all experiencing a change that we didn't expect, that we have never had to experience before. And so just the change of routine, the change of mode of learning, the change of who we interact with, all of that can cause stress for our students. And then on top of that, they're having to learn really quickly how to be an independent learner and how to manage their assignments, how to learn on the computer, how to submit an assignment. Even the little things can add up, right? And so for our older students as well, they have multiple teachers with a variety of expectations. And so they have that additional stress of balancing different priorities, right? And then, of course, we have the stress of being with our family 24/7, right? Which feels great sometimes and doesn't feel great sometimes. And then missing our friends, right? Those are the people we used to be able to sort of vent to about all the things we were stressed about, especially for our older students who are more used to venting to their social group than their family group, right? Mm-hmm. So we might even start to wonder what those friendships are going to look like moving forward, and causes even more stress.
Right, exactly. Okay, all right. So we've been able to identify stress and explain what that is. We've been talking about what negative stress feels like, or it begins to, how we can start experiencing that, or how we can recognize it. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about some stressors for students, both from learning everything new about distance learning, to assignments, a shortened time frame, to missing our friends, or having that change in our lives, and also, yeah, being around all of our family all the time. So what can we do then? What can students do to manage this stress, short term and long term?
Yeah, so that's the good news, right? There's a lot we can do to manage our stress. So in the short term, I can't emphasize enough how powerful a really deep breath is, or a handful of really deep breaths. And when I say that, I don't mean up into our chest, which is how we get when we're physically exerting ourselves or stressing, and breathing up here. So what I want you to do, Xanthi, is go ahead and put your hands on your belly for me, please. And just take a nice deep breath in. Oh, you don't have to shut up. Take a nice deep breath in. And you should feel your belly getting big like a balloon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then flattening as you push it back out again. I'm not very used to that. We usually breathe up here. So if we can take some really deep breaths into our belly, 3 or 4 or 5 times, and that can be incredibly powerful in the moment. That actually tells our brain to start producing the hormones and the chemicals that calm our system down. And sometimes it's helpful to pair that with touch. When I take a deep breath in, I go with my finger.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our teachers call that starfish breathing, and when they teach their little students how to do that. And it's just the automatic input to our system saying it's time to start relaxing, and that's okay. We're safe. We can relax. And as we're doing that, we want to consider what our thoughts are, because our thoughts can be a greater cause of stress. And if we're continuing to have those negative thoughts, those thoughts that we can't handle it, those thoughts of like, oh, all the what ifs, while we're breathing, it's not going to be as effective. So we want to focus our thoughts on positive thoughts. So we can either focus our attention on exactly what is happening in front of us. We can consider what we see. So I can see right now my mirror behind me. I can see in front of me my couch and my kitchen. And I can hear the wind in the background. I can hear my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the way the breath comes in through my nose and down through my lungs. And so really paying attention to exactly what's happening in front of us can be incredibly helpful.
Okay, being in the present moment.
Exactly. It's called mindfulness, which a lot of people confuse with meditation sometimes, but mindfulness really means focusing our attention on what's happening right now. Right?
Okay.
So if we practice mindfulness when we're feeling stressed out, it will calm our bodies down.
Okay. And then how about that long term? What are some things that we could do long term in terms of relieving that stress?
So considering thoughts, moving forward with that idea, we need to put our minds in the habit of optimistic thoughts, of I can do this thoughts, of how can I take all 7 of my assignments and chunk them into what I can manage. I can't do all 7 at the same time, right? But if I focus on 1 at a time, I can do that. Another thing to consider is our healthy habits, which we all know we should do and sometimes have trouble doing, right? So we should be getting an adequate amount of sleep, which is different for everybody. Some people need 7 hours of sleep. Some people need 9. And we need to focus on what our body needs. Some people need to go to bed early and get up early. Some people go to bed late and get up later. And that's all okay, as long as we're getting enough sleep, right? And eating healthy as well, of course. Of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't indulge every now and then, have a sweet treat that makes you feel better. It just means that we're also with that foundation of being healthy. And movement is super important, because stress hormones build up in our body, and our body will remember that stress even if our brain has forgotten it. So we want to move to get those hormones out of our body, to release those chemicals, physically release those chemicals. And again, that can mean a variety of different things. Some people really feel great after a run, and every now and then I do too, but for the most part, I'm not a runner. So I love to go for really long walks. I love yoga that flows a lot. I have a couple of students who have dance parties with me when I'm on the computer with them. You know, other students are basketball players and they want to pound the basketball against the ground and go hard one-on-one with somebody. Really, whatever kind of movement feels good for you. It shouldn't be something you feel like you have to do for your physical health, but something you really just love doing and feels good.
Those are awesome explanations. I really like the idea of first being able to identify the stress that I'm under. Is it a good stress? Is it a bad stress? And knowing that there's two types. Second, being able to realize I need to pay attention to my habits. If I'm having any changes in there, and is there something like you mentioned, the biting of your nails or whatever that is, has there been a change? And then identifying, for me, if I was a student or if I'm a parent or something, what are the stressors that I'm under with the changes that I'm going through that I need to pay attention to, whether it's learning something new or in something challenging, and what are the things that are becoming overwhelming for me. And then basically knowing that there's things that I can do to relieve that stress, that there's things in the short term that I can do, being right here, present, experiencing the things that I feel, the things I see, I taste and touch, all of those things. And then long term, there's things that I can do to also relieve that stress, like you're saying, that physical activity. And it doesn't mean I have to, worry about how many calories I'm burning per se. I could take a good long walk and probably burn more calories and get more stress out than just doing a shorter run, or something that's going to further stress my body.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be more stressful when we push ourselves to do things we don't like.
I love that too. You're talking about the dance parties and the dancing. I love dancing, so I think that's something that I could see a lot of kids doing, or just in general, just being engaged with some sort of physical activity is awesome. Okay.
And one final thing, if you don't mind, that I didn't consider as we were discussing is what is in our control and what is out of our control is really important to consider when we're feeling stressed out, right? Especially right now, because there are a lot of things out of our control. And because they're out of our control, we can't do anything about them, right? Which doesn't mean we should try to ignore them. We want to acknowledge this thing that's really hard for me, that I can't leave my house and I can't see my family and my friends. That's hard for me. And I want to talk about that when I have that feeling, right? But it's out of my control. So if I perseverate it, and if I don't stop thinking about it at some point in time, then it's going to cause stress that is hard to manage. Right. I want to be sure to focus then my thoughts back on what I can control, right? I can schedule a Zoom with my friends, and I can interact more with the neighbors I see out when I'm walking. So really thinking about, is this within my control or is this out of my control? And when we talk about something that's out of our control, we name the emotion that comes along with it. Maybe it makes us angry or sad, and that helps us feel better. And then we can focus our thoughts back on the things that are in our control.
Okay. And I noticed there's one of the things too that you mentioned that students might be stressing over or experiencing stress about, and that's that connection that they once had physically with friends, and even their teachers, that now that's not there anymore. And I know in our district we have some resources that can help if we can't get on a call with a friend or Zoom because they're just busy, they got stuff going on too. I think we work with the concierge service, the caresolace.com, and that's available on our website for anybody who wants to be able to reach out to some kind of mental health therapist or any other kind of psychologist that's out there, depending on the circumstances. And then I think at the district, we also have that new resource line that parents or students can call, and we can arrange for them to talk with someone.
We do, and that person is a mental health therapist in the district, just like myself, and they will help give more suggestions for what the student can do to manage the stress, or what the family can do to manage the stress, because sometimes it's the parents, right? And it doesn't have to be a long-term thing where they're engaging in therapy regularly. It's just a one-time thing to refresh their own strategies that they already have. So when we stress out, we forget that we have the resources within ourselves to manage that stress. It's just an outside voice that can help us remember our own power to overcome that stress.
Awesome. Some
of our students are texters these days, right? All of them. And so I think I mentioned last time we talked, but I just love the resources, the 741-741 crisis text line. Some are more comfortable engaging in text than conversation.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Oh, speaking about conversation. So, Katie, I want to thank you very much. You've given us a lot of great things to think about. We look forward to having you back again to talk about some other things and stress and anxiety that might be out there in our community with our parents. So I think that might be our next topic, is to talk about the stresses that our families, our parents are going through with all of the changes and whatnot. But you have a lot of great ideas for today, things that we can do that are within our control versus things that are not within our control. So we just want to say thank you very much to you, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to coming back.
Awesome. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.